When emergency first responders were overwhelmed by Los Angeles County's most destructive fire yet, a band of surfers, along with their neighbors and friends, stepped up to defend their home turf in Malibu. Their devotion to home drove them to show up for their community during the fire and for years afterward. And now, a model they call the Community Brigade program could change everything, leading to more lives and more homes saved during the increasing wildfires across not just California, but the world. Join reporter Adriana Cargill from KCRW, NPR's All Things Considered, Crooked Media, and more, as she investigates a wildfire story that is not depressing, but is, in fact, a clear hope for the future. Listen now to Sandcastles, an award-winning podcast about home, how we create it, and why we fight so hard for it. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Important Not Important. I hope you're all safe and sound out there. This is the latest in our Do Better, Better series of essays that are crafted to help you think more clearly about the future today. If you are new to our community, these essays complement the audio version of our weekly newsletter that drops on Fridays, read by Brian Colbert-Kennedy. And of course, our critically acclaimed conversations with diverse, interdisciplinary humans working on the front lines of the future. We are grateful to have you as part of our community, working alongside us on the world's biggest problems and opportunities. 2 reminders, you can get these essays and our newsletter and a whole bunch of other fun stuff in your inbox at importantnotimportant.com. You can also find back episodes of our podcast there, conversations, our most popular ones. If you're just getting started, you can also find back issues of the newsletter, all kinds of stuff. And you can also send us feedback to questions at importantnotimportant.com. Send us a voice memo from your phone, and we will use it in a future episode. All right. Today is Do Better Better number 10. Almost caught up here. The title is Even the Smallest Person Can Change the Course of the Future. And if that rings a bell, we will get to it. This was originally published November 22nd, 2020. Many words and gallons of figurative blood have been spilled in the long war over how to most effectively take on the world's biggest problems and opportunities. The lines are often starkly drawn between the factions of individual actions and systemic change. The gatekeepers of each side can often spend as much energy telling newcomers how they're doing it wrong as they do fighting the good fight. But it's important to understand why these captains of progress are forced to clarify our most prudent way forward again and again. The forces aligned against them, and us and you, have sought since the 1950s to confuse you, to misinform you, to use billions of dollars to create chaos among the ranks of the well-intentioned, to make this your fault. And the onslaught of greenwashing and environmental original sin continues to this day. This, in a moment when we need all hands on deck. Every gender, every race, every dollar, every effort, and not just because this ticking clock is a measure of the Anthropocene, in itself a war of attrition involving every hand on deck, but because the systems built so far, without incorporating every gender and race, have failed for every demographic save one: white men. Those white men, again, who looked like I do, being the same demographic that designed the systems and enslaved the men and women that built the clock itself. To be clear, those same stakeholders have spent enormous sums to convince you that you, your person, your habits and choices are the problem. And that, in turn, only you and the very personal choices you make to buy low-tar cigarettes, to use fewer plastic straws, to wear a mask, can reverse these very unfortunate circumstances we find ourselves in. Tick-tock, make better choices. They are everywhere as designed. These people are leading international conglomerates to incredible profits and failing to lead countries, including and especially this one. They have abandoned taking care of you, but will never stop extorting and misleading you. These stakeholders, profiteers, poisoners of mind and body, worm tongues but with Twitter accounts and trillions in subsidies, seek to divide us, to extinguish our brightest flames before they can be lit. To defeat them does in fact require systemic change. That is the nature of being alive when the clock is almost up. Incrementalism, fewer plastic straws over time, ignores that the damage is nearly done. And so turning back those who come to our efforts asking, "How can I help?" is how we lose, and how we fail to enact systemic change. They can take away our air and our water, but they can never take away the power each of us has to decide how we react to such outright thefts. And how we choose to react is born of our own perspectives and our own skills. Frodo didn't take to Mordor because he sought adventure. Frodo was an undersized orphan and only child, and the only place he'd ever called home was inevitably going to be destroyed. He was incredibly and publicly reluctant to take up the cause. But he also knew he didn't have a choice. And he was also never alone, as a fellowship of like-minded allies quickly formed by his side, a steadfast gathering of very different creatures, with very different skills, all willing to throw aside traditions and grievances because the time was now or never. If nothing else, Frodo's was a tale of how much we can inspire each other to take up the fight. As my hero Rihanna Gunn Wright wrote, "We are still terribly, dangerously alive. And any moment that you're alive is a moment to fight back against the people, institutions, and ideologies, the systems, that prefer death over justice." And as my other hero, Dr. Leah Stokes, wrote, with regard to the new documentary I Am Greta, "You can make your life into a living act of resistance. Make your life into art." But you don't have to do all of this, and you don't have to do any of it alone. Your individual actions won't manifest in a vacuum. Not now, with everything on the line. You can use your privilege and put your body in the streets with thousands of others. You can put your body in between your ancestral lands and a pipeline. You can run for office to represent hundreds or millions. You can become a sustainable materials scientist and create a lab with 6 other scientists to build new straws that don't destroy ecosystems, but that also don't become tissue in a glass of cold brew. You can string simple words together into something none of us has ever read before. You can use your expertise spinning up restaurants to become a new leader in food-based disaster relief for millions. You can pick up trash every day for hundreds of days in a row to lay bare the choices of others who walk the same paths. You can use your art to iconicize a movement. How many young Americans sat on the floor of Nancy Pelosi's office just over 2 years ago? 150? There are oil companies with 150 senior vice presidents. 150 members of Generation Z does not a revolution make. Or does it? Just over 700 days later, and our otherwise centrist president-elect has promised to dismantle fossil fuels forever. Because thousands more young people watched those original 150, and together they have refused to stop knocking on his door. The choices you make, how you choose to join the fight on a daily basis, these choices to be you, to use what you've got, these actions repeated over time become a pattern, become a habit, become a part of who you are. They become a practice, a new practice, not unlike doing push-ups or going to bed earlier, getting up earlier or drinking more water, journaling, exercising, calling your mom every day, calling your representatives, skipping school every Friday to protest, volunteering. The initial choice to begin, to invest in developing a part of yourself, to better yourself, your relationships, and your world, to commit to it every day. These individual actions add up. Transform who you are. Open new opportunities. Inspire others around you. And become something so much more. They can become the face of a new movement. They can dismantle oppressive systems. And they can reverse the clock now, at the turn of the tide. Okay, folks. Thanks so much. If you're listening on Apple Podcast, a rating and a review will go a long way to supporting our awesome community and getting more folks like you on board. Same thing for a player like Overcast. Just tap that star button. It takes 1 second. We would love if you subscribe to these episodes and joined our community officially. You can do that anywhere you listen to podcasts. And once again, if you go to our website, importantnotimportant.com, you'll find plenty more awesome tools to fight for a better future. Thank you so much.